continuous audit of digital systems. Continuous audit. What happens? You created a digital asset and now you're distributing this asset online. Okay. What happens is you can actually create a trail of what happened with this asset and you can audit it. Okay. And then there is something called automatic expiration. Automatic expiration, I already told you. Once the data has lived its life with me, I paid for 1 year. 1 year is gone. The data vanishes from my platform. Okay. These are called DRM methods, digital rights management method. Okay. Okay. Now, one thing that was added in CISSP 2021 and which is very relevant even today is something called a CASB solution. That is Cloud Access Service Broker. Okay. Has anyone worked with a CASB solution? Zscaler? Perimeter 81? Microsoft Entra? Anyone? Okay, so what is a cloud access service broker is? Say today, if we look at how we operate, right? So if my enterprise ERP may be on SAP, right? My email may be on Office 365, right? My CRM may be on Salesforce, right? I might have certain enterprise resources on AWS. Okay, I might have my AD in Azure. Okay, and I might have Canva for my some content management. I might have my organizational LinkedIn accounts. Okay, imagine so many cloud applications, nothing on premise. Go back 20 years. Email on premise. Okay, AD on premise. No, why 20 years? Let's go back 10 years. Email on premise, AD on premise, data center on premise, everything on premise. Today, I even can't think that I have my own email, my own, everything on cloud. I don't, and I pay what? Peanuts for each user. And go back 10 years, 15 years, when you had to even get your own email ID for organizational email ID, you have to put your own email servers. You have to, manage those servers. You need your own web server, everything. Today, you needed everything on premise. Today, you don't need anything on premise. You just need one laptop and you can run everything from one laptop. Why? Because your network speeds are very high and you have services on the cloud. But now the problem is for each service, you need a username and a password. Username, password, name, password, username. And then you are remote. If you are remote, the other problem is how do you manage your remote, users? That means if everything is on cloud, your users, your employees do not need to come to office. They can work from anywhere. If they want to work from anywhere, then you are restricting their speeds by using VPN, because you need a VPN concentrator. Everybody will connect to this VPN concentrator and then connect to these independent services. And everyone require one username, one password for each of these resources. Therefore came the concept of CASB, Cloud Access Service Broker. This is the broker where you can push in your policies, and the cloud access broker, he's a broker, he's a middleman, and you are the user. CASB puts an agent inside your endpoint who continuously validates your authentication data, and based on organizational policies gives you access to applications which you have rights. So basically, it's an identity and access management procedure on the cloud. Okay, it basically gives you cloud access broker. Now CASBs also support on-premise applications. So if you have some on-premise application, some legacy application which you cannot take to cloud, CASB, Cloud Access Brokers, do some. At least Zscaler does provide that. What happens is your firewalls are out, your physical firewalls are out, your on-premise policies are out, identity and access management is out. everything gets centralized. The moment it gets centralized, however, it becomes a single point of failure. If your CASB gets hacked, you are hacked. Your entire organization is hacked. That is the connotation of cloud access service broker. Okay, clear? Any doubts? Right. Then next concept is something called pseudonymization. Pseudonymization. What is pseudonymization? Pseudonymize is giving a pseudo data. Okay, if I have PII data, okay, which is my name, my email ID, my mobile number, I pseudonymize it. Okay, I represent it with some other parameters, so that if this data gets leaked, you cannot have a correlation with the original data. Such thing is called pseudonymization. I can give my name, I can replace it with some number. If it is my SSN number, I can replace it with some letters. And there has to be obviously a correlation, right? Whenever you're storing data into your database, right? If you're dealing with PII, PHI, proprietary data, you generally carried out pseudonymization so that you can prevent the data from being identified. Generally, the lead data is pseudonymized. That means if I remove the name and the SSN number, rest all data becomes irrelevant. I remove this data and I pseudonymize it. I put some other name. I will not be able to know who this data belongs to. Okay, that's called pseudonymization. Then there is something called tokenization. Okay, but tokenization is generally happening in the credit card industry. What happens is, once you put your credit card number on an application, credit card number and CVV and other things, this should not go as credit card number. Why? Because if a man in the middle attack takes place, I will be able to read your credit card data, right? So what you do at the application level, you take the credit card data, you tokenize it, and you have some tokenization algorithm, and you give some token to it. You give a JSON token, and you give some token with it some time. What happens is, this logic is available with your credit card service provider, and this token is used. The credit card data is never used. Okay, so basically, you are protecting the credit card data when it is traveling, data at transit. Okay, this is how you're protecting the data. Okay, and then finally there's something called anonymizations. Okay, anonymize the data. Anonymizes, you remove the identifiers. Okay, I know my name is Subhajeet Naha. Okay, my KYC data is XYZ something something. My address is this. My mobile number is this. What is the main thing that is relating? I remove this. I remove this part. I'm not changing it. I'm not denoting it with a number. I'm just removing it. Why? Because I don't need that name. I just need certain parameters. One of the best examples of anonymization is when COVID was happening, you were getting a daily report. Today, 2.1 million people affected with COVID. How was the data being given? Data was only, everybody was getting tested. You had the name, you had a COVID positive or negative. Only this data was being given. Your name was irrelevant. You only needed the data, how many COVID. So you anonymize the data. You only give the actual part. Such kind of data, if you anonymize data, the relevance of the data is removed. Okay. Now, this is as far as how you protect the data. And finally, with the data comes ownership. Somebody has to be responsible what needs to be done with the data. And ISC2 gives certain amount of roles and responsibilities as far as data or asset is concerned. So we will now talk about something called data roles. Okay, now data roles, first is data owner. Who is data owner? Data owner is the person who owns the responsibility. Okay, who has the final responsibility? Who has the final responsibility in Google? If the data loss takes place, who has the final responsibility? Sundar Pichai. Generally, the CEO has the ownership of the data of a organization. Okay. Then comes next is the asset owners. Now what happens? Asset owners are basically, this data in an organization. There are different processes, okay, which are handling data. Somebody is handling PII data, somebody is handling PHI data, somebody is handling, unimportant data. This is not important. But each system is owned by someone, right? Somebody is owning this system. Somebody is responsible for the system. Ultimately, the data owner is responsible for all types of data, but somebody is responsible for different systems. Such system owners are called asset owners. Okay, responsible for a typical part of the a system which processes the data. Then you have something called business or mission owners. Like we saw in the example, there was one vertical, second vertical, third vertical. They all are processing some kind of data to meet a business objective. Okay. And that owner of these particular systems is called the business owner or the mission owner. So this is the asset owner, this is the business owner, and the overall responsibilities of the data owner. Who was the data owner? The CEO, right? So these are called business or mission owners. And finally, somebody will, process the data for you. Somebody will, some processes will, process the data for you. And such roles are called data processors. Okay. Data processors are entity which are taking the data, processing it, and giving it to your vertical to do whatever they want to do. And there are also someone called data controllers. Okay. The person, data controller. Data controller is the person who is responsible for processing the data. Data processors are the processors who say, I want to carry out KYC. Okay. I can't do it myself. I get some third party. I say, hey, please collect their KYC and verify and do it to me. They are collecting the data, okay, and processing on my behalf. They become the data processor. But in my organization, I put someone to control how they are processing that data. That particular role becomes the data controller. Okay, he keeps a check on the data processor, what they are collecting, what they are doing with the data. Okay. Then finally comes the data custodian. Data custodian. Data custodian are generally the roles who implement controls for security. Okay, basically they are the ones who are responsible for protecting the data hands-on. Okay, so CEO might be responsible, overall responsibility. He generally delegates the task, right? Now, suppose CEO directly may not be delegating it, but I am made responsible for ensuring that this data remains secure. I'm auditing it because I have the responsibility for implementing all security controls. Such roles are called data custodians. And people who implement those controls are called administrators. Administrators are the guys who are technically, physically carrying out the hands-on task. Okay, data custodian tells what needs to be done. Administrators are the one who are the executing it. And finally are the users and subjects. Users and subjects are basically, users are people who use the data. Subjects are whose data is being collected. Okay, so this finishes our generally the domain 2, that is data and asset security. Right. If you have any controls, you can please tell me. Okay, we already saw tailoring, scoping, and standard selection last time. Yeah.
So can you explain the data custodian and administrator concept once again? They seem to be quite similar, but then what is the exact difference?
No. Custodian, no. No. Look similar, but they are not similar. Okay, let's take a small example, right? A bank, SBI, right? Huge bank, large bank, right? Large banking system, country's large, in fact, world's largest bank. How many thousands of, each has a region, right? South region, North region. Okay, there are multiple regions. Under each region, there are zones. Okay, and under each zone, there are banks. This is how generally SBI works. Okay. zones. Okay, each bank is there, right? Zones and banks, right? Now, who are the use? Now, we are not talking about customers. Now, we're talking about bank as a bank, right? Okay, who are the users of if bank is trying to secure itself? Who are the users for the bank? The employees who are working in the bank, right? These employees who work in the bank,
Yep.
right? They are the users. Who are the subjects? Subjects are the clients, right?
Mhm.
Because the client's data is being collected at all times, right? But who are the users for the bank? The employees, right? Okay. Now, is the bank manager custodian of the data? He's not bothered. His responsibility is only to run the bank. He's not responsible for data in any way. But he is a administrator. Why? He has to ensure that his bank is safe. He has to ensure that physically everything inside his bank is secure. Okay, nobody's able to plug in a data cable or something somewhere, right? So it's somewhere he's implementing the security, right? But then somebody is laying down what he needs to do. Somebody is telling him that there should be one physical guard in the bank. You will carry out this audit, something, 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 something. He's telling what to be done. Custodian. Why? Custodian is worried that there are 100 banks under him, and manager of the bank becomes the administrator. Why? Because he's implementing the security controls. On ground, there might be some third party, some vendor coming in, but whose responsibility is to implement? The administrator. Administrator may be doing it himself, or he might be getting. It's a little philosophical concept, right? Look at with an open mind. He's responsible, right? He might
Yep.
be getting it done from some guy who comes in and configures that how the bank functions. But he's the custodian. The custodian is the administrator. What is the custodian? Custodian is telling, hey, how do we need to protect the bank? How do we need to protect the data? Okay, we are implementing it. But custodian is not deciding how. Who is deciding? Owner. Who's the owner in this case? SBI does not. SBI does have a CEO, but SBI has a huge management board. The management board is responsible. A management board is the data owner. If there is some leakage of some kind of information, management board is answerable to the government of India. Clear?
Yes. So thank you.
So it's a little philosophical concept, but with your experience, if you try to put it in place, you will understand who is the owner, who is the custodian. The custodian is implementing the policies on behalf of the owner. Owner doesn't have time. Owner is told, hey, listen, we are collecting this. Please follow the land of the law. Okay. They might tell the CISO, hey, CISO, you are supposed to. The CISO in that case becomes an advisory to the custodian. But CISO will never be the custodian because he's not going to implement controls. Controls will be implemented at each regional office by something, putting out policies, AS 256, blah, 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 blah. But somebody has to be the custodian who is going to implement the policies. Got it?
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe our channel.